Friday, very exciting sports weekend for sure. We have Phillies baseball tomorrow, game one of the NLDS between the Phillies and the Braves. And then Sunday, of course, the Eagles and the Rams. Birds 4-0 start. We keep the great, easy for me to say, guests rolling, Derek Gunn, and I'll get my tongue in place here. And we are joined by the Hall of Famer himself, Mr. Ray Didinger. Ray, first off, happy Friday, Ray. Good to see you as always, my man. And I want to let everybody know you're a phenomenal book, One Last Read. It's now out on paperback.
Yeah.
You got to show it to them right there.
There you go.
Look at that handsome mug. You got to get that thing, man. You got to get that bad boy. Also, Ray and his old radio partner, Glenn Mack, now will host a sports movie. How about cool is this? A sports movie night at the Players Club of Swarthmore, Tuesday, November 7th. They're going to show scenes from iconic sports movies and then discuss how the movies were made, how they were cast, behind the scenes stuff. Awesome, awesome stuff. Tickets are now on sale. Players Club of Swarthmore's website. So that's that. I love that, Ray. That is so awesome, man.
Yeah, it's a fun night. I mean, Glenn and I have done them before. You know, we did the book, The Ultimate Book of Sports Movies, I guess it's about 9-10 years ago, where we picked what we thought were the 100 greatest sports movies of all time. Mm-hmm. And out of that, we decided to start trying to do some talks and things about this general topic, because everybody has a favorite sports movie. Everybody loves to talk about sports movies. And so we decided to test it out in the theater and just see how many people would show up. And it was really popular. So we did several of them. And then we just did one about 6 weeks ago at the Bryn Mawr Film Institute and filled the place. And we had a great night.
Wow.
So the Players Club of Swarthmore, Glenn's part of that organization. He's done a few plays there and all. They came up with the idea of us bringing sports movie night to their theater. So I'm really looking forward to it. November 7th, tickets are now on sale. So if folks want to come out and have fun checking out some very famous scenes from great sports movies over the years, and then just talking about them and how the movies were made and all that kind of stuff. It makes for a real fun evening.
How did you go about knowing so much about how movies are made, the behind the scenes mechanisms of how movies are put together? What did you have to do to get entrenched in that?
A lot of research. I mean, when we came up with the idea of doing the book, Glenn's a former reporter. I'm a former reporter. So we're by nature researchers. And so we just read everything we could about the making of these movies, how they were put together, what went right, what went wrong. How certain movies that nobody had any expectations for suddenly became enormously successful. Rocky being a classic case in point. I mean, Rocky was made on a shoestring budget. It was shot in 30 days, and it won the Oscar for Best Picture, and it has spawned 6 sequels plus now the whole Creed series. The sports movies thing is just a fascinating subject. I mean, and little bits of trivia that go in there that people don't know about that make it even better. I'll give you one example. One of the movies that we're going to show a scene from, and we've done this every time, is Hoosiers, which is really one of the best sports movies ever made for sure. And people are always shocked when we tell the audience that when they originally got the movie together and cast the movie, Gene Hackman was not supposed to be the coach. Isn't that amazing? I mean, when you think about Hoosiers, it's hard to imagine it without Gene Hackman. I mean, I think it's one of his greatest roles in a great career. Originally, that coach of the team was supposed to be Jack Nicholson.
Wow.
Whoa.
And then there came a conflict. The shoot schedule got pushed back. He had another movie to make. He had to make a decision. He decided to make the other movie. He walked away from this one. And at the last minute, they went out and they contacted Gene Hackman. He came in and knocked it out of the park. Now, you think back on Hoosiers, and look, I love Jack Nicholson. I do. I think he's a great actor. But you put Jack Nicholson in that role as Coach Dale, it's a totally different movie, I think.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love to, and I give you guys props for this. You also did some sort of obscure ones. You made it a point. Not everyone is the natural or all the home runs that we know about. You know what I mean? Like you also worked in a lot of other movies. I always think about like The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh and the weird quirky ones too when it comes to sports movies. You know what I mean? Like, so I love the fact that you guys really really did mix it up well. I will say.
Yeah, we did. We ranked the movies 1 through 100, and Fish That Saved Pittsburgh was actually number 100. and the fact is, neither Glenn or I really liked it that much, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But we found out in the course of interviewing athletes and people around sports, which we did for doing the book, Donovan McNabb told us that was his favorite sports movie, and so. Just for that reason alone, we had to get it in the book.
Yeah, I'm biased. It had Dr. J in it. That's all I needed when I was a kid, and the rest is history. So,
all right. I got 2 quick questions in one, Ray. First of all, did my favorite sports movie, North Dallas 40, make the top 100? And number 2, give me your top 3 all-time favorite sports movies.
To answer your first question first, North Dallas 40 absolutely made the book.
Great movie.
Yes.
Was one of our top 10.
Yes.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was number 10. I think it was number 10 out of the 100. Okay. Yeah, we both liked it a lot. I think there was an enormous amount of truth in that movie about what pro football is like, what the players' experience is like, the cynicism of the front office, and how the corporation kind of runs everything, and the players are just sort of pawns on the board. I mean, that is very real. And I think it's the only sports movie I can think of that dealt with that part of the story that honestly.
Yep,
so,
Peter.
Yeah.
Yep.
So and Nick Nolte was terrific.
Yes.
I still can't quite get my arms around Mac Davis as an NFL quarterback. I thought that was the one part of the movie that kind of didn't ring true to me. Every time he cocked the arm and throw the ball, I just thought, no. But the rest of the movie, especially the inner workings of the team, I thought was really very good. My 3 favorites would probably be the 3 top in the book. I didn't have any quarrel in any of it. It was Rocky was number 1, Hoosiers was number 2, and even though it's a very different, totally different kind of sports movie, Raging Bull was just an absolutely spectacular piece of filmmaking. And in fact, Roger Ebert picked it as the best American film of the 80s, of the decade.
Wow.
I don't quarrel with that. I think it was an absolute masterpiece. So it doesn't fit the description of your prototypical sports movie, because it's a movie, frankly, it's a movie where it's very hard to root for the hero.
Yeah, he's
a hero. It's not really a hero.
That's right.
So it was a real different kind of movie. But Robert De Niro was absolutely sensational, as was Pesci, as was Kathy Moriarty. And I think Martin Scorsese has agreed that it's probably the finest film he's ever made. So that's my top 3.
All right. Okay.
Very cool. Very cool. So look forward to that. Check it out, November 7th, the Swarthmore Players Club. So head out there. All right, Ray. So let's talk about the team. I don't think we've had you on since the season started. They're 4-0. Only 2 teams 4-0. I know for some Eagles fans, it hasn't looked maybe as smooth as they anticipated. Just give me your overview through almost the quarter pole here of what you've seen from the Birds.
Yeah, I think you said it very well. I think that's kind of where we are. It's very funny when I'm walking around town and people stop me to talk about the Eagles and stuff. It's so funny. I mean, most of them say, "What's wrong with this team?" And I, my response is, "Have you checked the standings?" 4-0. There's only 2 4-0 teams, and they're one of them. But there is the sense that they haven't played great, but it kind of tells you about the overall strength of the team, that they could play a little bit subpar and still be 4-0. If for them to get back to the Super Bowl and win it, they'll have to play better than they've played to this point. But they've come away with 4 straight wins, and that's pretty good. I mean, listen, we all remember, and I covered Eagles teams that didn't win 4 games in a whole season. So I'm not going to sit here and find a whole lot of fault with 4-0. But the fact is, and Jason Kelsey said it, I thought, very well after the game on Sunday when he said, or the game against Washington, when he said, hey, we got a lot we got to clean up right now. And that's right. And that's true. And, I think that this game in Los Angeles on Sunday is going to be it's going to be a tough game, I think.
Mhm.
It's pro football, as we all know, we've discussed a million times, is really a game of matchups. How do you match up with your opponent? And right now, the Eagles have some issues in their secondary. There's no doubt about that.
Mhm.
And they're going up against a team that has thrown the ball more than any team in football to this point. And Matt Stafford's averaging 40 attempts a game. Guarantee you he's going to throw it 40 times on Sunday.
Yeah, you can believe that.
So, and they're getting Cooper Kupp back. So, I think this is going to be, I don't think this is going to be easy for the Eagles by any means. I still, they're 4.5-point favorites, but I think this is going to be a real test.
Ray, I think we agree this is not going to be the dominant team Eagles-wise overall that we saw in 2022. And that's fair to say, considering you're integrating a bunch of new coaches, a bunch of new players, especially on the defensive side of the ball. As you look at the 4 games, are there little tendencies that you see that if they don't get ironed out could be big trouble for this team when they start playing the better competition?
Yeah, most of them are in the secondary, Derek. Most of them are in the secondary. I mean, you see, you saw what Washington was able to do with them last Sunday. I mean, the way, with 1:43 to go, they just walk the ball down the field inside the game. I mean, if you're a really good defense, you don't let that happen. And that's that to me is the issue. There just was a lot of blown coverages. There were receivers too wide open. There looked like there were some issues in communication in the secondary where guys didn't look like they quite were all on the same page. And that's a concern. That's just particularly a concern when you're going up against a team like the Rams that's built to throw the football. And you got a veteran quarterback who has been around a while. And you've got a rookie receiver who's just tearing it up. I mean, catching more balls than anybody in the league. And their best receivers coming off the injured list.
Yeah,
those are all matters of concern. And you look at the Eagles secondary right now. You got a couple of veteran corners, and then you got a lot of guys that are just trying to find their way. And they're very thin back there. They're very, very thin back there. And you got the 2 corners that you're really counting on that the whole thing's built on are both in their 30s. If anything happens to them, boy, the Eagles will be hard pressed to replace them because. You've lost Avonte Maddox. I don't know people really understand how important he was to that overall defense. But you lose him. You lost Zach McPherson in the preseason. Now, all of a sudden, a unit that didn't have a tremendous amount of depth to begin with is now dangerously thin. And it wouldn't surprise me at all. I know the Eagles picked up one more DB this week. It wouldn't surprise me at all if come trade deadline, you see Howie make a move to bring in another defensive back for the back half of the schedule, because I think they could really, really use some help back there.
Ray, you touched on it. Nakua is off to a record-setting pace so far. Atwell's played very well. They add Kupp, who we know, what he's capable of. Higbee's a good tight end too. How big a challenge is this? Are you surprised at the start the Rams have gotten off to? I mean, I think they played better than some anticipated. 2-2 is nothing to, celebrate here necessarily, but they played pretty well, all things considered. What do you think about this Rams offense?
Yeah, I think they're dangerous. I really do, especially the way the Eagles are playing right now. I think this game, it's obviously very winnable for the Eagles. They're favored for a reason, but if they're going to win it, they're going to have to win it with their pass rush, because they're not going to win it on the back end, not the way they're playing right now. And Nakua, you mentioned him, has been he's shocked everybody, including, I'm sure, the Rams coaches. I mean, I wish I could sit here and tell you that he was one of my draft sleepers, but he wasn't.
Yeah. 5th round. He's bigger than most BYU guys. He's got good size.
Yeah,
he does. Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't on anybody's radar. Nobody.
Yeah.
He had an okay college career. He didn't put up huge numbers, and a BYU offense where historically good receivers would. Average speed, 4.55, average size, 6'1". I mean, there's nothing exceptional about him, but he catches the ball and he has a real good feel for being able to read a defense and find the holes. And because of the Kupp injury, he's gotten an opportunity to play a lot, and he's made the most of it. And one of the reasons that this game kind of concerns me from an Eagles standpoint is that I know Sean McVay. I have a lot of respect for him as a an offensive play designer. I think he's very good at that. And his offenses have always been built on a lot of motion, a lot of formation changes, a lot of deception, a lot of scheming concept things that use one pattern to set somebody else up. I mean, he's very good about scheming, getting guys open. That's always been his strength. And the way the Eagles secondary is playing right now, that's a bad matchup. You know, is a team that's going to throw a lot of disguise at you. It's going to motion you, change formations, all that kinds of things. With the Eagles team that I saw playing Washington, some of the breakdowns they had, some of the poor communication they had, that's going to be a very, very, if they play the same way, the Rams could give them a lot of problems. Again, I think this is going to be, you know, the Rams offensive line is not great. If you looked at the tape of their game last week, Matthew Stafford was getting hit a ton. Yep. And I think that's going to be the key for this game is the Eagles defensive line, which I think is very good and should certainly win the battle up front. If they can get a lot of pressure on Matt Stafford and hit him, and he has thrown 5 interceptions, if they can get that kind of pressure on him, then I think that they'll win the game. But the matchup of that passing game against the Eagles secondary, the way they're playing right now, has the potential to be a problem.
Hey, Ray, Jaylen Carter is still in his infancy stages of evolving in the NFL, but he already has the second most pressures of a D lineman behind Aaron Donald. You've covered a lot of defensive linemen in the history of this team. Are you starting to see comparisons with somebody else that you've covered?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's very, very good. I mean, I think we all knew coming in that he had the chance to be a really good player and an impact player right away, which he has certainly been. I was with I did a charity event with Dick Vermeil the other night, and we were talking about this. And he was talking at length about how impressed he is with what he's seen from Jaylen Carter. Mm-hmm. And he actually, I almost fell out of my chair when he said that he does some things that remind him of, get this, Reggie White.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my goodness.
Now that's coming. Hey, that's coming from a Hall of Fame coach, okay? Wow. So I'm not going to dismiss it. I love Dick. I'm not prepared to put Jaylen Carter and Reggie White in the same sentence just yet. Mm-hmm. Especially because they kind of play two different positions. I mean, Reggie played on the edge. This kid plays inside. I think it would be a fair comparison to make at this point as a rookie to compare him to Jerome Brown. I think that's a fair comparison because they kind of play the same position. You're asking them to do the same thing. And we saw, 4 or 5 games in Jerome's rookie year, we were seeing a lot of the same kinds of abilities. His ability, his explosion, his quickness off the ball, his ability to shed blockers, his strength, and his ability to collapse the pocket. I mean, we saw that with Jerome right about in the same way we'd have with Carter. So, I think that's a fair comparison. But Dick surprised me the other day by actually saying he's seen some things in him that remind him of Reggie. Now, again, I'm not prepared to go there, but I did an event with Seth Joyner about 3 weeks ago. And before the season started, it was the week of the opener. And Seth said flat out, that Jaylen Carter is going to be the defensive rookie of the year. Yep. I mean, he made that prediction before the first game was played. And at this point, I mean, if you had to handicap the defensive rookies, he's probably right there.
Yep, I would agree. Are you surprised it took until game 4 for the passing offense to get clicking? We know they ran it very well in a few games for sure. Has that surprised you? Did we not anticipate a learning curve here a little bit with Brian Johnson taking over Shane Steichen? How do you view it?
I think the learning curve works both ways. I think the learning curve, part of it is the learning curve of the defenses you're playing against. Yeah. Because I think, and you really saw it big time in the New England game, where the New England's coverages. I mean, they came out and they played all different kinds of zone defenses that the Eagles had not seen before. And I think you saw a lot of hesitation and a lot of uncertainty in the part of the quarterback and the receivers. And you were going to be getting that all year. Yeah. When you're the Super Bowl team and you have the kind of explosive offense that they had last year, every team in the league spent the whole offseason studying you.
That's right.
So they're coming. Everybody you're going to play this year is coming into these games with a far better idea of how to defend what you want to do. So that challenge is going to be there every week, and they saw it in week 1. And that's, I wasn't surprised. I kind of expected that. Now, I think you've seen with each succeeding week, they've started to figure things out a little bit. And obviously, the Washington game was certainly, in terms of throwing the ball, their best game of the year. But I think that, with the players they've got, I mean, with the offensive line that they've got, where it all starts, I mean, and the ability, Swift's addition has been huge. I mean, he's really good. He's been a really impactful player, second in the league in rushing right now. And I think he's going to have a big game on Sunday, because the Rams teams have been able to run the ball on the Rams pretty effectively. Mm-hmm. And I think the Eagles with Swift will probably be able to run on them again this week. But the 2 wide receivers are excellent. They're the best pair in the league. And, I would like to see them start getting the tight end involved in the passing game more. I think they have to. To take this offense out to its fullest dimension, you have to get more out of Dallas Goedert. I mean, right now he's averaging, I think, 7 yards a catch.
Yeah.
He's much more of a big play player than that. He's not. There are some tight ends in the league that are check down tight ends. That's what they are. That's all that they can give you. We've seen Dallas Goedert make a lot of big plays down the field, and so far they haven't been able to figure out how to do that. But they have to start, because he's too good a player to be averaging 7 yards a catch.
Mm-hmm. Ray, how would you categorize what a Sean Desai defense has looked like up to this point as a whole?
A little different than what we saw with Gannon. A little bit more aggressive, a little bit more willing to take chances. But I really felt I saw last week against Washington some. I don't want to say. I'm trying to think of the right word. Some wariness. It looked like they backed off a little bit on their aggressiveness, mm-hmm. and it looked like they were playing. They were kind of playing. They kind of went back into that safety kind of coverage that we don't want to give up the big play, so they were giving up a lot underneath, especially on that final drive. I think that was, I think Desai's philosophically would like to be an aggressive play caller, and I think he knows with the guys he has up front in his front seven, he can do that. But I think he's also a little worried about how is his secondary going to hold up if they take too many chances. So I think now sometimes he's sort of falling back into that mode of, I'm going to play it a little safe. I'm going to keep everything in front of us. And that to me was very evident on the final drive. And, the tying touchdown, which, hey, listen, if Riverboat Ron goes for the 2-point conversion, I'm not sure the Eagles win that game. Okay? Yes. But the touchdown that almost cost you that game, I'm looking at the coverage there and saying, where's the corners? They're standing in the end zone. You're not challenging anybody. I mean, that was given that situation, the team is down to one play. You have to play that more aggressively. And they didn't in that situation. It almost cost them.
How much of that, Ray, is Desai versus the organization's philosophy? It's like a chicken or an egg. It was that way with Gannon. They just seem to not want to give the big play up. And I don't know that Desai's hands aren't a little bit tied, even if he wanted to be a little more aggressive.
Yeah, I think I honestly think that's kind of almost across the league now. Is this idea of playing that style of defense? Don't give up the big play. The two deep safeties, the split in the half of the field, seems to be what everybody's mindset is now. And I kind of get that. I mean, you don't want to give up 60-yard plays, but the prevailing offensive philosophy now, and you hear it with every team you play every week, regardless of who the quarterback is. What's the one thing you always hear? Got to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand fast. Got to get it out fast. Get it out fast. Get it out fast. 2 seconds, 2.2 seconds. The ball's coming out. Well, okay, if everybody's going to play that way, and they are, then you can't be playing your corners 10 yards deep.
Right.
You're making that so easy for that quarterback to get those easy, quick throws. If you understand that that's the way teams are going to play, that the whole idea is going to be get the ball out of the quarterback's hands fast, then you got to be challenging up at the line of scrimmage. You can't do that underneath stuff. So that's why, and it's not just an Eagles thing or an Eagles organizational thing. I think it's a league-wide thing that if I'm a defensive coordinator now And I know every week the whole idea is, boy, we can't have the quarterback holding the ball. It's got to come out fast. Well, then that's fine. The other part of it is, the only way I can answer it is I got to have my corners right up in your face at the line of scrimmage so that 2 seconds when he's trying to get rid of the ball, guess what? His guy's covered as opposed to being 5 yards open.
Mm-hmm. Ray, I've asked a number of people this, and I got to get your perspective on this. Does it appear to you that Jaylen seems a little bit slower in terms of floating out of the pocket? And even when he steps up to run, he doesn't seem to have that second gear burst that he had a season ago.
Yes, I think that's a fair assessment. You're not the first one that said it. I've heard other people say it. I mean, Ron Jaworski said it early in the season. He doesn't seem to be running the same way. He's not running as fast. He's not running. The runs don't seem to have that kind of explosiveness. Well, I think it's. I don't think he's slower. You know, I think what it is now is they have told him and they have coached him that when you run now, you got to look to get down. You know, and as opposed to in the past when we saw him run, he was running. I mean, he was running with the ball and he was trying to get every yard. And okay, he would slide at the end. But now I think he's running with the idea of, as most quarterbacks do, I'm going to run and I'm going to get what I can get, then I'm going to get down. Mm-hmm. And I think when that's the way you're running, as opposed to busting it on a big run, that just makes you look slower because, frankly, you are slower. But I kind of understand the philosophy of what they're trying to do here is they're trying to get him through 17 games in one piece, you know, and I can't say that's a bad idea. I mean, each of the last 2 years, 2 years ago, he had the ankle foot injury that hampered him big time in the playoff game. And then last year he took the big hit in Chicago and he played the last month. He missed 2 games and then was playing with a bad shoulder. So that's 2 years in a row when you were going to the postseason, but you were going with a damaged quarterback. So I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to find a way to get through this year and get to that stretch run into the postseason with a healthier quarterback. So that's always a good idea, but I think it's resulted in kind of what you're seeing now, which is the Jalen running plays don't look like the Jalen running plays in the past because there's an element of self-preservation there.
Ray, just quickly looking at the NFC East, it looks like 2 teams are in big trouble. The Giants, and coming off a hideous performance on Monday night, and then the Commanders, who actually hung in there with the Eagles certainly, but last night was just, awful, beyond awful. Are they cooked? Are both of those teams just don't even worry about them the rest of the year? This is a 2-horse race here between the Eagles and the Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised because I thought the division would be more competitive. Coming into this season, we've talked over the last how many years now where the NFC East has been so bad that it's really been the Eagles and the Cowboys, and that's it. And you didn't even think about the Giants and Washington. Coming into this year, I kind of thought, okay, I think the Giants looked like they made some strides last year. And you figured Washington, with a change in ownership and maybe a different sense of direction, would start to come together a little bit. But you're not seeing it. You're not seeing it. That was a dismal performance by Washington last night. At halftime, just watching them get booed off the field, I fully understood it. They weren't even really competitive against a 0-win team. So are they going to bounce back? Doesn't look like it to me. And the Giants, I think partly it's their schedule has been really tough early. And the next 2 weeks now they got to go to Miami and then they got to go to Buffalo, so it ain't going to get any easier. I think the Giants are they got better last year, but I think what happened was that people really overestimated how good they were. I think they overreacted to them, A, making the playoffs, and then B, winning that game out in Minnesota. In fact, I think even with you two guys, I think we talked about in the aftermath of the season, where I said, I think the Giants, I think they're about to make a big mistake. I think they're going to give Daniel Jones a huge contract on the basis of basically one game. That win out in Minnesota against a Vikings team that I think we all kind of realized was kind of overrated and overhyped. They weren't really that good. And going into that game, I actually thought I picked the Giants to win that game because I just didn't believe in the Vikings. Well, they went out there and they won, and Jones had, to his credit, a really good game. But I think that the Maras felt like at that point they were kind of backed into a corner, and the press was on them and the fans were on them to sign the big contract. Okay, now they signed Daniel Jones to a $160 million contract, and look where they are right now. Their offensive line is just terrible.
He took a beating.
Yeah,
he took a
did.
beating.
Yeah, he did.
You saw that last week. Our offensive line was just brutal, and they'll get Saquon back maybe this week, if not next week. But I don't know that it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah.
I thought the Giants would be. Kind of 8-8ish, 9-7 kind of thing. I kind of thought they'd be in that range.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, listen, if they fall to 1-5, I mean, the bottom could fall out of that thing real easily.
Yeah, no doubt.
Ray, before the season started, everybody across the board, when you started to stack the teams in the NFC East, the NFC, it was Eagles, 49ers, pick your flavor, and then Dallas number 3. And that seems to be the case right now.
Right.
But here we are approaching week number 5. Give me a sleeper team to keep an eye on in the NFC.
I will tell you the same thing I told you. You asked me almost exactly the same question the week before the opener for a sleeper team, and I'm going to give you the same answer I gave them. I think Seattle. I think
they're
Seattle,
coming on, man. They're coming on.
I think Seattle's pretty good. I think people kind of forgot about Seattle when Russell Wilson left. They kind of just wrote him off and said, well, that's the end of them. And kind of said, well, Pete Carroll's probably at the end of the trail and they're going to have to do a rebuild and blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't so sure about that. I mean, they still have some good players there.
Mm-hmm.
And look, nobody's more surprised about the resurrection of Geno Smith than I am. But I've gotten to the point now where I kind of believe in it. I mean, for a while last year, I thought, he's going to go back to being Geno again, But it looks to me like he's found a good situation. It looks like he's sort of responding to coaching now. He's making good decisions with the ball, and he seems to be gaining confidence. It seems like he sort of feels like, he's kind of going through that second chapter of his career where all of a sudden it's like, wow, it's coming easily to him. And the Giants played terrible against him. I understand that. But you still had to be impressed by what Seattle did, coming all the way across country to play in New York on a night game. I think Seattle's for real. And I think they're a team that nobody's really talking much about, but they're formidable. And the Eagles have to play them at the tail end of that killer stretch. The Cowboys and the Bills and the Chiefs and the 49ers. At the tail end of that, nobody's talking about Seattle, but you should, because they're going to have to play the Seahawks and they're going to have to play them out there. And any of us that have been around know the Eagles' history with Seattle is not a good one. So they would probably be the team that's maybe lurking as the surprise team. Right now, I think they're going to be in the playoffs.
All right, Ray, lastly, who wins the Eagles game? What do you think in this one?
I'll still take the Eagles. I think it's going to be high scoring because I think the Rams, the way the Eagles secondary is right now, I think that Stafford and that passing game are going to make some plays. I wouldn't surprise me if the over-under number went up. I mean, right now it's at 50.
Yeah, 50 and a half. Yep.
And I would go over that right now. I think both of those teams are going to score. But I think the Eagles will win, and I would say probably something like a 30-24 kind of game.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Ray, listen, thanks. I want to remind everybody that your book, One Last Read, now out on paperback. And also, as we talked about a little bit earlier, yourself, Glenn Mack, now at the Players Club of Swarthmore. That's Tuesday, November 7th. Awesome. You're going to show scenes from sports movies, discuss how they were made, the budget, crazy stuff behind the scenes, all that kind of stuff throughout the course of the night. Tickets on sale at the Players Club of Swarthmore's website. You can get tickets for that right now. So, Ray, we appreciate it, man. Always great talking to you.
Always great to be with you guys. See you soon.
Thank you, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you so
Take
much.
care. All
Take
right.
care, guys.
Yeah.
You got it. That is Ray Didinger. All right, Gunnar, let's come back and let's dig into some of the better matchups in the NFL this week. We always give you NFC East flavor. We'll talk. We just mentioned the Giants. We'll look at the Giants. We'll look at the biggest game of the week. That's the Cowboys and the 49ers. Also, the Jets are on deck for the Eagles. So we'll look at the Jets and the Broncos and some of the other good games. We'll dig into that when we come back. Remember, later in the show, we'll give our Eagles predictions, how we think the game plays out, and our Phillies predictions as well. So don't go anywhere. That's Derek Gunn. I am Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. All right, ProAction Restoration, because this is key. You want to take down this information. All right. ProAction Restoration. If you have a home, you have a business, you have a property that you own, and you go through the inconvenience and the pain of water, fire, smoke damage, mold remediation, you're not sure how to go about cleaning it up, fixing it, etc. Well, ProAction Restoration is on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. You can reach out to them at any time. All right. They are licensed, bonded, fully insured, and they've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. ProAction will work in conjunction with your insurance company also. So water, fire, smoke damage, mold remediation. But if there's something else that you're not sure about, just give them a call for a consultation. 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or you can reach out online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.